59 seconds. 59 seconds. That is what launched the craze for the mythological figure that would become known as Bigfoot 50 years ago. For legal reasons, I cannot show you much of the Patterson film, but even from this brief clip, you can see why it was so captivating all of those years ago. A creature that stood about as tall as a man, with gangly arms like an ape, and a hobble-legged gait, unsure of walking on 2 feet, crossing a riverbed in California. There was something about its shaggy fur and primitive, ape-like features that looked oddly human. What is it? What could it be, more specifically? That is what we plan to discuss here on Keehner's Bizarre Animal Adventure, as we tackle the first cryptid of this series. First, we should look at precedent for something like Bigfoot, a large, bipedal primate with shaggy brown, gray, or black fur that stands between 5.5 and 8 feet tall, while standing on its hind legs, of course. To reach such a size, it would likely have to be a hominid, like humans, apes, chimpanzee, and orangutans. Fortunately, or perhaps most perplexingly, there was a creature that seemed to fit into the category of size that existed. Though, this creature only existed in the Far East of China, Vietnam, and India. Gigantopithecus. Now, Gigantopithecus is a relative unknown among the scientific community. It has no complete fossils discovered to date, a trait that it shares with Bigfoot. But there is evidence concrete enough of its existence, unlike Bigfoot. What could be gathered, though, is that Gigantopithecus was a hominid that evolved from another large Asian primate, or concurrently beside that primate, the orangutan, some millions of years ago. Gigantopithecus could tower as high as 7 feet tall while walking bipedally, and may have been the heaviest primate ever, with upper estimates of weight putting it well north of 500 pounds. To feed such a large frame, one would obviously expect a lot of food. But interestingly enough, Gigantopithecus blacki, one of the species of Gigantopithecus, would feed on bamboo, something that it had in common with ancient panda ancestors, whom it shared much of its territory with. Tying this back to Bigfoot, though, Gigantopithecus ticked all the boxes. It had large size, the right fur color, and like gorillas and other apes, could walk bipedally for short distances. There's just one thing. Gigantopithecus has been extinct for at least 300,000 years. Theories for why this is are up in the air. Some of them state that it could not survive competition with Homo erectus, which was a human progenitor. And at this point in time, Homo erectus was spreading much across the Asian continent. Another theory states that it could not handle the changing weather patterns around the time as bamboo began to disappear and the Pleistocene era came into full effect, with the most reasonable creature for Bigfoot being deemed extinct 100,000 years before the first Homo sapiens even walked on the earth. What could Bigfoot be? That is where I present 2 theories. The first, and perhaps most reasonable, is that Bigfoot is a misidentification that carried over from the earliest days of man. A misinterpretation of a bear scratching against a tree, or an illusion played on a trick of the lights. Something in early man's mind, leading to these tales and stories of massive humans that stalk the forest in silence. A legend rendered by the inability of the primitive human mind to understand. The second, and something that is perhaps the most interesting, is that there is a large primate that we have not discovered, wandering just outside of our field of research. Behind every myth, after all, is a grain of truth, and with videos coming out so frequently every year, they can't all be a hoax. There could be a solo simian, as it were, a solitary species of hominid that has gone unknown to science. One intelligent enough to never directly compete with humans, but wander right beside them. A Bigfoot that's just out of reach. Something just cunning enough to avoid the most prying of human eyes. Or perhaps my theories, and many theories on Bigfoot, are of no substantial grounding. The ramblings of people that have dug too far into evolutionary biology textbooks, or have gone off a little too drunk into the woods, and it's something that doesn't need to be explained. Not every mystery needs an answer. However, one must always accept that there is a chance for the other option to be true as well. These are a hoax. Elaborate, well-produced hoaxes put together to dope gullible people into buying into these stories. People wanting to grab onto history held sacred by so many for their own personal gain, without care for the ramifications it has so long as they get their dollar. Ultimately, that's up to your decision to make. I believe there very well could be a solo simian out there, a member of Gigantopithecus that survived extinction, a family of hominid that convergently evolved alongside humans, that was intelligent enough to realize that competing was foolish, and they accepted the forest niche while humans moved out into the savannas, and into homesteads, and eventually into the cities. It's a lot to think about, honestly. A bizarre idea in an already bizarre world. What is to say that the next expedition into the Amazon, or into the Himalayas, or into the dense Congo won't come back with evidence of such a creature? So many species, so much variety, so many chances for discovery. It's a crazy, bizarre world out there, and we just live in it, like every other species on the planet. As always, I hope you enjoyed. This was a big research project for me, and something I've been discussing with a friend for quite a while. I really enjoyed researching this topic proper because I actually got to use my evolutionary biology book and a few of my other resources for it. And I expect to do further Keehner's Bizarre Adventures in the future, so keep an eye out. Please stay safe out there in this crazy world.